Hey everyone, and welcome back in here to the channel. I am Cole Carmody, and with me today we've got a very special guest, someone that I have known for quite a few years now, going back to our days at Wildcat 91.9, Joe Tillery of Heartland College Sports. Man, I specifically remember getting on the radio, you, me, and Ryan Gilbert, talking some K-State. Gosh, that would have been like pre-COVID. I mean, way back in the day. It's been a while, but Joe, man, how you doing? Thanks for hopping on.
I'm doing good, man. It's awesome to talk with you. Yeah, those days, man. I was flashing back a little bit this week. I saw the 75th anniversary shout out from our guy Steve Smithers, and I was like, man,
Mhm.
think about the days with you and Ryan both. So it's feels like it was yesterday, but also at the same time, 2 decades ago somehow.
It's always fun to kind of look back and see. I listen to some of my old podcasts and stuff. I'm like, whew, like I could, I feel bad for all of my listeners, aka all of my family who were listening to the radio, because I'm like, man, that must have been rough to get through. But nonetheless, here we are, and I mean, Joe, so much going on. First of all, if you haven't already, go watch Joe's YouTube videos. He does an awesome job. I will go ahead and link his channel in the comments below. Not like he needs my help. He's probably got like 1,000 more subscribers than I do right now. Trying to get to the point where maybe you watch my video and then you go watch Joe's video and go back and forth. But he's done a good job. He's been pumping out videos, so go check that out. But man, basketball season is in full swing. Obviously, the NCAA tournament is here. At the time we record this, KU just got absolutely thumped by Gonzaga. I kind of felt bad for KU a little bit in the second half of that game. I'm like, ooh, it was really fun in the first half, and in the second half, it doesn't look so good. But with the March Madness NCAA tournament is here. Obviously, the women play tomorrow as we record this, but Jerome Tang has a lot of work to do, and that's what the topic of this video is going to be about. And I want to get your opinion on this, Joe, because you follow this team just as closely as everybody else. But man, it sure seems like the movement, especially Cam Carter, your guy Cam Carter. I know you guys did an interview with him, and I know that was probably painful for you to see. But we'll start. I guess we'll start with that. Were you a little surprised to see Cam enter the transfer portal? Because I can tell you that I was honestly a little surprised.
You know, it's tough. Obviously, hindsight now is 2020, so I can sit here and be like, yeah, I saw it coming from a mile away. I really didn't. I wasn't entirely sure how that was going to work out because you almost feel like Kansas State athletics, and maybe I'm being a little too cliche here, but with both basketball and football, you view the programs as providing stability in an unstable time of college athletics.
Mm-hmm.
And with Cam, like obviously that's the way it works in college athletics. If it's a playtime thing, or it's not the right opportunity, or something's going on, or you lose 7 of 8 games at K State, there's obviously going to be change that comes with that. With Cam specifically, I don't know that I looked at it and saw, okay, Cam's for sure not going to be here next year. He's going to be a portal guy. He wasn't one of the first people that came to mind, but I think that, with him being from the Louisiana area, I would expect him to end up getting somewhere back home. Not that Manhattan is, the furthest possible way, but it is still a good, 10, 12 hours away from
Mm-hmm.
hometown. So I was a little surprised. Maybe it was a little bit of selfish bias because I'm a Cam Carter guy, but I don't know. I think it could provide an okay opportunity for both sides now that some time's passed a little bit, and kind of a fresh start of where you want to go with the roster going forward.
Yeah, I'm with you on that. I mean, I saw that, and I tend to think maybe it was a little bit more of a mutual thing. I don't think this was a Cam Carter being mad about his situation. Maybe it was more of a, hey, you know what? Let's sit down as a coaching staff with Cam and discuss our options. And quite frankly, in today's world of college athletics, if you want to keep your young guys, sometimes the old guys have to go. I mean, the same thing happened with Ish Massoud last year, right? Unfortunately for Ish, he went to a situation that was absolutely horrible, got hurt, and then Georgetown, I think, won less than 10 games all year. If he could do it all over again, I'm sure he would have stayed because he would have started on this team. How much he would have made of a difference in their, the end of their season, I'm not sure, but he would have started, he would have played, he would have finished his career strong at K-State. He goes to Georgetown. I think maybe it's a similar situation with Cam, right? Like, again, you brought up going back home. I see a school like LSU would be perfect for Cam Carter. Why would you not take him? An LSU program that's, third year head coach, going to be, trending upwards. Seems like it'd be a perfect spot for Cam, 20 minutes from home. We'll see. But like it seems like one of those situations where if you wanted to keep RJ Jones, if you wanted to keep Day Ames, David Castillo, you promised him all this playing time. Well, at the guard spot, there is going to be minutes that probably Cam would have to give up. And that doesn't even talk about Quez Glover, who I'll ask you about here in a second. But it seems like it was either, hey, take a little reduced role, maybe come off the bench, maybe, um, or, explore your options. And he ultimately decided to explore his options.
Yeah, I think that's the right way to go too. I mean, it's tough to ask a player if his like that's the argument you have in professional sports and college sports of where do you say, okay, Cam, we need to go in maybe not an entirely different direction, but instead of having you in this kind of score first mentality, that defensive stopper approach, we're going to need that from you for 25 minutes a game, limit their
Mm-hmm.
best score, do the right thing. That's not always the most appealing pitch to guys. And I don't even know if that necessarily is the pitch per se, but one thing you think about LSU too is like they also got to see Cam Carter go for 20 and 11. I think it was his first career double double early in the non-count schedule. So you get to see that up close and personal. A guy from your own home state cooking you, like that's a tough reality for sure. But I think it does come back to that question of where the minutes going to go because Cam this year averaged just under 35 minutes a game, just under 34 minutes a game. And that is a ton of time. I mean, the guy's coming out for a quick breather in the first half and then sometimes not at all in the second half. With that, you have David Castillo coming in. You have RJ Jones coming in. Quez Glover, that's a question mark too of minutes time. And I don't expect the staff, or I wouldn't expect the staff to lay off the guard position in the portal, even with
Mm-hmm.
Cam Carter still around. So it's definitely a question of what are you going to do and how many people can you fit in the lineup. But I think overall it could, work out a little bit better than how Ish's situation might have gone, a year from now, where both sides look at it and say, you know what, we're happy for the opportunity for you, and it worked out okay for us as well.
Yeah, I think this staff probably is going to help Cam. I think he was the second player they brought in. Jarrell Corbett was the first commit. Cam Carter was the second one, and they expected big things from Cam. I think you can't look at Cam Carter's career at K State and say it was anything more than a massive, roaring success. He started every single game his sophomore year, led him to an Elite Eight, and then averaged 15 points a game this season. Obviously, the turnovers were what they were, but you know what? Again, it's just one of those things where you kind of move on. It kind of reminds me of like a Will Howard situation where both sides maybe came to the realization it's probably time to move on. And so with Cam being the first player into the portal, Dorian Finister the other day also entered the portal. I don't think that one was too unexpected. Unfortunately, in today's world of college basketball, if you don't play for 2 years, the odds of you sticking around are probably pretty slim. Will that happen with Taj Manning? We'll have to see. Maybe I wouldn't put it as high chances as it is with Dorian Finney-Smith simply because Taj is a local guy, and so that appeal to be at Kansas State might be a little bit more strong than the appeal to go somewhere else, further away from home to maybe get some minutes. I don't know, but quite frankly, Joe, I kind of look at this roster now and I say, I don't know how many more guys leave or enter the transfer portal.
Yeah, I think that's a great question. I was thinking about that today too, a little bit randomly. And, there's some guys that could be like you could see a situation where they enter the portal. I know that like last night you saw at the women's basketball game or the other day at the women's basketball game, you saw a lot of the guys, even, with Cam and Dorian in the portal, everyone came out and supported. I don't know if anybody ever got a reading on Arthur Kaluma, if he was there, if he was busy, he was doing NBA draft workout stuff or not. But I think there's going to be questions around Art to an extent. I don't as it sits right now, if I had to make a pick, it's really early in the process, but I'd say Art does stay at K-State. But that's in the
Mm-hmm.
sense that he doesn't go through with the NBA draft. He doesn't do, whatever the opportunity is. But it's definitely like Taj Manning comes to mind when you think of a guy that didn't get the minutes you wanted. Obviously, that's what pushes Dorian Finney-Smith to the portal. And, no matter how much you love a team, like to jump back to an interview I did with Cam Carter, one thing Cam mentioned is he's like, no matter how much fun and how much success the team has, you don't want to be the guy clapping on the bench. So there's always question marks around that. I don't expect it to mess with the freshmen too much, but I also could understand a situation where, a guy like Buddy Rich says, you know what, I played, 4 minutes really over the better part of all of conference play. So there's questions to be
Mm-hmm.
had there, but I think the staff does a good job of understanding where each guy's coming from, what they need at that point in their career. Like, Day must have been more advanced, or maybe not advanced, but further along in the sense of, okay, we need you to do this for us, average, play 20 minutes a night, do your thing as a guard, and we'll get to the next spot. For guys like RJ, for guys like Buddy, it might be a slower process. So it's just that nothing in college athletics these days is a given. But the next week or two, we should get a better feel for sure for where the roster is going to be going forward.
I'm really excited for what this roster looks like next year. I tweeted it out during the Iowa game. Unfortunately, I feel bad now watching that Iowa game. Like I watch these NCAA tournament games. I'm like, why did I waste 2 hours of my life watching K-State versus Iowa in the NIT and Peyton, whoever that was, dropped 25 points on K-State? That was just brutal to watch. But the good thing that came out of that game for K-State, and I think the reason why they wanted to play that game is because you saw, like you said, Buddy Rich. I mean, he came out, he showed some potential. Day Ames, unbelievable effort against Iowa, unbelievable effort in the Big 12 tournament. I was at that game in Kansas City against Texas, and he was unbelievable. He was unreal. I mean, Day Ames really started to develop at the end part of the season. And Joe, I haven't showed you this, but the thumbnail that I made for this video deals with exactly Day Ames. It says the future of K-State basketball, and it has Day Ames and David Castillo right there. I mean, I look at those two guys coming in for next season for Kansas State. When you watch March Madness, when you watch the NCAA tournament, guard play. I'm watching Gonzaga. I'm watching KU. Nimhart for Gonzaga is miles better than any guard for KU. KU has one point guard. They have no other guards. Gonzaga destroyed them because they had the better guards. You watch the games for the rest of the year. Taman Lipsey. Now, hopefully, if I might eat my words if somehow Iowa State chokes tonight as we're recording this, but Taman Lipsey is going to take over a game because he is legit. He is elite. You need guards to win in March. I think the staff understands that. So you're right. They are going to go get a true ball handler, and along with bringing in David Castillo, I am really excited because when Baylor had success, when Jerome Tang was there, it was through their guards. When Baylor has success now, it's through their guards. K-State is trying to build that same sense of stockpiling the guards, and eventually one of them will hit, and you will develop a star.
Absolutely. I think that, I mean, that identity has been so successful for a team like Baylor the last couple of years. And honestly, you spend 2 decades around a guy like Scott Drew, you win a national championship, you have all the success, that kind of tends to wear off on, or not wear off on you, to rub off on you, so to speak.
Mm-hmm.
And with Kansas State, like you saw that this year, when Tang steps in the first year, you have Marquise Noel. And obviously the partnership together brought out a really incredible player that we all were super fortunate to see. But there wasn't a ton of like multiple guard sets. Like Desi Sills was mostly on the court as a everything utility type of guy. It wasn't as much of a multiple guys can control the game. And that's what you see with guards like, I mean, you saw Keontae George last year with Baylor. You saw, you're seeing guys like Langston Love, obviously is banged up this year, but you've got a bunch of different dudes all across Baylor's roster that are, either one and done guys or have spent 3-4 years there, like an Adam Flagler, guys like that. It feels like this is laying the groundwork for that type of environment at K-State. So with David Castillo, obviously the upside's there to be a one and done type guy if that is the situation. But Day Ames, you hit on Day. You've got a guy right there. That's a typical, like, that is a Jerome Tang guard. Like maybe 5-10 years down the road, we're going to look back and see, okay, so when you're recruiting young guards, you look for Day Ames. That's what Jerome Tang's looking for. So I feel real confident about that. But there is also the aspect of experience and how much experience do you need to be successful in the big dance and conference play and stuff like that. But, you feel like guys like Day where 1 year almost feels like 3 or 4 for certain other guys. And I don't know if I can really justify that in a lot of different ways, but you get the experience for a year and then you're expected to step up and be that guy when push comes to shove. So I think we're just, the last couple of games, you're just starting to see the surface of where Day Ames can be as a player, but it does feel like the cards are going that way.
Yeah, and I think if I'm making a checklist for K-State in the offseason as to what they need to get and who they need to go try and get in the portal, I think a lot of it surrounds those guards, right? How confident do you feel in David? How confident do you feel in Dede? I think the answer to that question is extremely confident. If they retain Quez Glover, which I think is a real possibility at this point, I mean, he didn't walk on senior night. There's been some conflicting reports to say maybe he's coming back, maybe he's just going to hang up the sneakers. We'll see, but I would honestly anticipate at this moment in time him coming back, and you have a very, very stable group of guards. I think they're going to go out and probably try and get another one. Obviously, depending upon if we have any more enters in the transfer portal. But I'm looking at maybe be a guard, an experienced guy who's able to come off the bench, play 12 minutes a game, maybe be more of a pass first defense kind of guy. I feel like you have your scoring in Dede and David, but it wouldn't be a bad idea to go get a defensive kind of guard, an assist-minded guy. Think of, again, going back to the KU comparisons, an off-brand DeJuan Harris, somebody kind of like that. Which brings me to I said David. Well, David Gasson is another one of those guys who has a decision to make. If David Gasson comes back to this team, I think it elevates this team's ceiling because David Gasson performed at a very high level at the end of the year. If they can find some kind of jump shot for David, his game suddenly goes from very good college basketball player to probably potential all Big 12 caliber because he is that good finishing around the rim, rebounding, and on defense.
Absolutely. I mean, excuse me, not Dave Castillo, David Gasson, like there was a lot of early hate for Dave to start the season off with the non-con because you saw some of the issues with free throw shooting. You know, you didn't see much of a consistency when it came to some of the heads-up attack mode plays he made down the stretch. But that's a textbook guy who showed up, did the work. He didn't complain about it. He didn't switch his role up on the TV, didn't do different things. The guy stepped up and worked. You know, obviously the free throws weren't great down the stretch, but the guy showed up and you could see a noticeable improvement. You know, you could see him attacking the lane and getting to a spot where it's like, okay, I can back someone down, post somebody up in the paint, and then get a quick bucket or get at least to the hoop and get a good shot. His defense and rebounding, like the combination of him and Cam Carter from a defensive point, whether it's out on the perimeter or in the paint, that was a great thing to watch. With David Gasson, I think the question is going to be, you know, what role do you carve for him as a in his final season of college basketball? Because the difficult conversation to have with Ish Massoud was, hey, we don't have enough minutes for you here. Obviously, that aged poorly, so hopefully the conversation goes a little different next year. But with Dave, you know, I don't know that you need him to be a 32-minute guy, but you get him out on the court for 25 minutes of just solid type play of what he's done in the past. Like that increases the defensive effort, the rebounding effort. I mean, you saw how much that jumped from last year to this year. And I also think the idea of switching him to play less five like we did this season than, pretty much exclusively anchored him at the four position, that's where he needs to be. Absolutely. And, you know, you saw some of the progression with Jarrell Colbert, and I anticipate probably another big coming in, another big or two in the portal. But if you can get a guy like David Gasson back on the court, there is no part of me that's even disappointed about that at all. Like that is a massive boost in culture, in energy, and a guy that's been there before.
I agree. So before we wrap this up, I need you to do some math with me, okay? I don't have the roster in front of me, but I need you to help me with math because I'm a history teacher, not a math teacher.
Okay.
I believe, this is just my gut feeling at this moment in time, there will be 4 open scholarships. 4 open scholarships, okay? That if I were to guess, I would see 4 additions for K-State in the portal. Now, let it be known that K-State seems to be, quote-unquote, talking to every single transfer that's actually been worth a dang that's entered into the portal, which I always kind of laugh at. Like, K-State's kind of right there, and so is Arkansas, and, like, all these teams that are just notoriously really good at recruiting. Of course, they're going to kick the tires on these guys. But if I think I have a hunch, they're not going to try and add more than 4 guys. Like it feels like that is a number that Tang wants to try and keep. You have 1 guy coming in, so that would 5 newcomers. So would that mean you would return 7?
You know, that's a great question.
Because really, when you're breaking down the roster, right?
Yeah.
Like how many guys leave versus how many guys come in. Obviously we can go through and name this person will be back, this person will be back, this person will be back. But I look at it as how many open spots are you trying to fill? And that's honestly how you are supposed to go out and target those guys.
I think to an extent it'll look different than it did last year, but the approach will be similar. I think the biggest thing you didn't see last year, and obviously the Naquan Talman stuff has been talked about at length of, him not being on the team, but part of what you miss in that situation is that Coach Tang didn't recruit somebody to backfill that position. I mean, obviously Arthur Kaluma stepped in as a 4, but by the time Kwon was set to play, he was scheduled more as a wing than he was as a big. And they didn't really have any player that fit that role whatsoever. So I think people get a little bit nervous to say, well, we're only bringing in XYZ amount of guys. I think the approach to getting the right guys is going to be significantly different. But I might push back on that and actually say there might be 5 guys that come in. I don't know whether that means other guys enter the portal or what the case is, but you got 2 guys graduating, I think for sure, unless I'm crazy with Will McNair
and Perry, yeah,
Tyler Perry, and then you're going to have guys at the portal. Cam Carter, Dorian Finister hit. I think there's going to be more returners than people initially anticipated for sure, but I would probably mark it about 5 new faces in Manhattan, not including David Castillo. Castillo is the 6th. I don't know how that works out yet, or if that kicks somebody to the portal or not in my hypothetical. If it does, I'm not trying to. Everybody's welcome to stay, but that's what I'm seeing it work out is about 5 new faces outside of Dave Castillo.
And essentially, like if that's the case, either Glover would move on or Gasson would move on, and then that would probably, I think, in my
Mhm.
hypothetical, I have both of those guys coming back and Kaluma. So take your pick of one of those three guys moving on. In my hypothetical, I would think all three of those guys would come back. That would be my gut prediction. I think it's possible, but again, I don't think you're in a bad spot, even if one of those three guys moves on, because this staff has shown success in the transfer portal. I mean, nobody thought Will McNair would be anything more than a play 10 minutes kind of guy, because that's really all he was his entire career. And, was he an easy target to pick on? Sure. But when the team loses 15 games, there's a lot of guys that are easy targets to pick on. I think K-State would have gladly taken Will McNair on that Elite Eight team. And honestly, they might have won that game against Florida Atlantic if they had a true big that was actually able to go in and grab a rebound and guard the big guys for Florida Atlantic, which, by the way, seeing them lose in the first round just made me smile. So I hope it made you smile as well, because, man, this has been a tough season for basketball, but to see Florida Atlantic stumble out of the gate, yeah, like, all right, you were really good last year, and you shouldn't have even made the tournament this year.
Right. This was, I mean, they should have been damn near in the NIT with K-State. I mean, I don't see them really as leaps and bounds better. Resume conversation is definitely not. But one thing I wanted to mention on the offseason thing that I don't think I did a great enough job last year of kind of pitching. I think what you'll see with Jerome Tang, there's 2 or 3 guys in the Big 12 as head coaches that have it. His ability to develop players at an alarming rate, I would say, is uncanny. Like the dude has the ability to take, a 6-point Cam Carter. Yes, you started 30 games and had a bunch of experience, but you say, okay, we don't need you to be this, facilitator kind of defensive guy. Let's take everything you have and turn it up to a 10. While some of that comes with turnovers, you get a guy averaging 15, 5, and 4 in the best basketball conference in America. Guys like Jarrell Colbert, guys that you haven't seen a ton of lately. Obviously, Dorian Finister was a good pick for this kind of topic, but a guy like Jarrell Colbert, I expect a major jump. You'll see that with Data Ames as well. You'll see that with RJ and Buddy, I assume, if they end up both getting back to Manhattan. Watch for that jump, because that's where, people might look at the roster and say, well, we still have, 4 of the same guys in the starting lineup. They're going to be drastically different players by the time they hit the court this fall.
I agree. And I would anticipate Kansas State last year, they were in on guys like Max Asmus, Caleb Love, LJ Cryer. I think K-State's going to get a big name transfer this year. I have a feeling that Jerome Tang will be able to work his magic, and they will grab one of those guys. The efforts for Wildcat NIL, I think, are improving greatly. I've heard some really solid numbers that are coming out from that campaign, and I think K-State's getting more competitive in that area. They're going to have a chance to get some big guys, and I'm going to be following it. Joe, I know you're going to be doing it as well, man. It's going to be fun. I appreciate you taking the time, talking some K-State hoops. I'll let you go. I know you got to go back. We got to watch Iowa State tonight. We got to watch Oakland. First of all, Oakland, shout out Oakland, the Bears, not the Bay in Michigan.
Hey, thank you so much for having me, man. I appreciate it. I'm excited to watch you on the journey. Obviously we're on your channel, but be sure and stay tuned on this, man, because like I mentioned today in one of my videos, like I am trying to consume as much K-State content as well as humanly possible, I feel like. And you do a great job. You know what you're talking about. You know all the stuff and all the ins and outs. So be sure and check the man out. He does a great job. So I've really enjoyed watching and keeping track. And, the Royals updates I've enjoyed too. So I'm excited for that.
Appreciate it, brother. We'll have to do this more often.
Anytime.
All right. Thanks, everybody, so much for watching. For Joe, I am Cole. Everyone go ahead, hit like, hit subscribe, leave a comment. Be nice to me. Be nice to Joe. He deserves it. We'll talk to everybody next time. Thanks so much for tuning in.